Hey,
Hey,
who was the person that has the same last name as you that came on right before you?
it's 100% my dad.
Okay, so hi Dad. So this is like so he's like proud of you. You're doing an IG live with me, so he's got to come on and see.
100%, yeah.
I wonder how.
Oh, no,
So
no.
when they huh
Oh, sorry,
what?
you just got a little choppy there.
Oh, I don't know, but the wait, you always see people coming in, but you don't know when people leave. So for all I know, he's already done. He's already gone. All
I think he'll probably be one of the ones that sticks around.
right. Cool. Let's see what. So when did you get back? Last week or week before?
I got back last week, exactly last Tuesday.
Yeah, a little bit
La-
easier. Little bit easier this time than Puerto Rico. Yeah.
Yeah, the
All
return was
right.
so much easier from both of
So
them.
what this was this what which one was this? Because I never can tell because the U16 never changes, but then U18 19 always changes, like so they can stay together for an extra year, right?
So the U16, it goes U16, U17, and then U18, U19.
Also,
Um,
they both change, so they get to stay together for a period. Yeah.
yeah, so you're doing 16s to qualify for the U17 World Championships, and U18s qualifies for U19s, and then everybody can kind of move up together.
Exactly. Yeah, I never I wasn't always clear on how that worked, and then there's the university games, which I think we actually did that a couple years ago, but it was like somebody like it wasn't us. It was somebody they had the same jerseys, but everybody else like I didn't know anybody that was there.
Yeah, and I
That
think I ran into, because they did it in Italy, this last one, and I was going on vacation to Germany and ended up going to this. I was on the same plane with the men's basketball team, so they thought I was showing up to work with them for that trip. And I was like, I didn't even know you guys were going to be here. I'm just going on vacation.
for when for
for the
the
for the last Bishu team. When they went away, I think it was they were competing in Italy, and I was
yeah
going
okay.
to Italy and ended up on the same plane. So Grant Shepard was on that team, and a few other guys. So when I showed up, they were like, "Mary, we didn't know you were coming," and I was like, "I didn't know you were going to be here."
That was whatever that team was. I have no mem because all the years are like a blur now. That was the first team that we had, like the whatever the current model. That was the first time we did anything. That was like the famous Nike camp.
Yeah,
So it's part of the whole story of how Sam and I met and started to put things together because I think it was the year before was my first year, so that would have been like 2011, and there was no qualification. Now somewhere on Facebook is about 80 pictures and of that first thing ever where it was just everybody just showed up. I mean,
yeah.
Dylan Brooks is like 11 years old in these pictures. Like it's I don't remember if you were there yet, and because I wasn't like officially a part of it, I was just there to watch. And then as a result of what we saw during that whatever that was. I remember Sam. This was part of my speech because obviously everybody knows Sam was my best man a couple weeks ago, and I'm telling the story of that, and he's like, "So what did you think?" And this was that event before the Nike event,
Yeah.
and I'm like, well, this is all total shit, and a couple years later. Sam had said that we told the story, and he's like, yeah, like I brought you here because I knew if you believed that, you would be the only one that would actually say it. So then from there, then it went to this mysterious, like we're talking about this mysterious. What do you call it? It's FISU, right? That's what you're saying, right? FISU.
I
Yeah.
asked you.
So that next year, I said, like, you're doing this tournament, but I didn't really know what it was because it had a bunch of studs. Dwight Powell was on that team. Pangos was on that team. It was just and I'm sure there was many others, like legitimate players. And I said, listen, you have this tournament, this trip that's going to be in China. So there's so many things in line here. Keith and I know how to run a camp. Like, we know how to do this, and we just did one. It was during the lockout in the NBA.
Yeah.
And those pictures are, those videos and pictures are kind of famous, because it was all the top CAA guys. Like, there was no clutch yet. So a lot of, like, LeBron and everybody, they were all part of CAA. And I said, like, so we know we can run a camp. And, like, Canada Basketball is Nike.
Mm-hmm.
Jay was the coach, and he was still in Portland at the time. So it's like we could leverage, using Portland's facility and Nike's facility.
Yeah.
And you're part of the way to China. Like, you kind of, I mean, it's obviously a horrendous trip, but at least it's 3 hours, and you kind of have to go that way anyway. And it all came together. So that was this university team. And I'm trying to think who else would have been on there. Because I think it was, you were allowed to have been 1 year out of college or 1 year into college, something like that. I don't know. I don't remember. That was.
I don't remember the exact either.
Yeah. That was when Phil Scrubb ran a 67 on the yo-yo intermittent level 2, which is legendary.
Legendary.
Melvin was on that team. Now, I won't say that. I honestly don't remember who this player was. But if I did, I still wouldn't say his name because he was atrocious. And what we had done there, me, Keith, Sam, I don't remember if Meehan was there. Whoever this was, we had all this data that has now been somewhat commonplace to gain on all the different players at all the different levels. And we had built out reports. Walter Norton was there because he was part of what we had done with Nike as far as coaching-wise. And we would, like, name a name, and, like, one of us had the report, and we presented just so Jay and others could start to understand, okay, this is what this whole performance thing is meant to do. So I remember, I honestly have no memory of his name because he never was a part of the program. I think he came back like 1 year. I think there was probably early in when the windows changed. So, trying to find players before things really cemented over the last little while. So I'm like, all right, who brought in Mary? Like, who's guy? Because everybody's like, like their own guy. Like who brought in so and so? And it's all quiet. Like, nobody answers. And I'm like, no. This is gonna be a great example of explaining performance, applied sports science, etc. So just tell me, the reason I'm asking who brought in so-and-so is because if you like him, I need to know what you like about him, because he basically scores as poorly as you could possibly score across all levels. Meaning he's probably has the worst movement profile, he has no fitness, he's not explosive, and he's under-recovered for every session. And I don't even remember if we had the vision data at that point for him, because we weren't doing it on every single guy. And I said, like, because the truth is, you could be that individual and be that miserable and still be really good. You know who was on that team? Laurent Rivard. Do you remember him?
Yes, I have a photo. I think a plank challenge or something.
I think I'm still connected with him on Facebook. I'm pretty sure he went to medical school. Like, he just basically quit. He didn't play. And I said, like, look, we can look at a guy like Laurent Rivard, who basically, as long as the ball leaves his hand, it goes in the basket. Okay. Yeah. He played at Harvard, just moved on from basketball. And I said, like, somebody like Laurent is not as low scoring as this individual, but
Yeah.
sometimes players can do really special things and not have exceedingly high physical qualities. So if somebody here can admit that this is their guy, I would like to know if he does well. Like, what does he do well? Because if he doesn't do anything well, you wasted a hotel room, and we can help you not waste hotel rooms in the future. And everybody laughed. I have to believe. I really believe it was Roy. It was because Roy was there, and that was I think earlier that was when Roy had Wiggins on the U19 team.
Yeah.
That was probably the last time Andrew Wiggins played until 2015. And
Yeah.
he said to me, he said, Charlie, give me some ideas for recovery when we get these guys in Prague for the for U19 Worlds. I said, here's a great idea, coach. How about you stop burying them with ridiculous practices and let them recover on their own? And he just like stared at me. And I'm most happy that I can say that story. He and I can both laugh at it and know that where our relationship got to.
Yeah.
Because the thing that I think has been most special with what we have all done over the last 10, 11 years is people like Roy, Jay Triano, even like the Dave Smart, Dave DeVario, all the original coaches when this program started, and every one of them, I hope you would agree, they all changed with us as we gave the program.
Yeah.
Tell me what you think. Like, first of all, if I'm missing anybody, I don't know who that would be. But because Dave and Jay would have been at the senior level with us. Roy was
Hmm.
the U19 or whatever that was with Chris, and then you would have been with Dave
Yeah.
at the lowest level.
Yeah.
Like, do you see it that way? Like over
Yeah.
time,
Oh yeah, completely. Because I think that I got there. Well, I started as an intern in 2011, and we were doing two-a-days that were just burying athletes. They just were. Yeah, it was not great. And then I think as you came in and things started to change, the coaches started to change. They started to look for the information that we were able to provide them the way there was a different standard. Like they just wanted to have that open communication. The practices and the days changed. So I think that really did change the whole culture, the way those camps were run and the way they do run now. And I think the other thing is like my changeover at the cadet level with each coaching staff that's been in there, but they've been involved in our program in some sort of way. So they're still looking for that information. They still want the reports every morning on how everybody's doing. And so they still seek it out because they've been a part of the program, which is really cool to see as well.
Yeah, and as well as because people like you and every coach that I mentioned, obviously everybody who I'm not mentioning, I saw people log in like Chris and Grunman. Like none of this happens, which I think is why it's so hard to replicate. Is none of this happens without a lot of people, and it's not just like and I'm asking you to talk about it in a little bit, but as a athletic therapist in Canada or fitness, whatever our it's the link to the coaches, and it's a link to the people like Grunman or Matt York who came before him that like make things like that whole Nike trip. I mean, there's a lot of logistics, and I would say, so what would it be? It would have been for 7 years at least where no personnel changed from the coaches to the athletic, to the performance staff. That's what people don't miss. They do miss that. That's like the consistency of people, because I can tell stories on how I would intentionally communicate to Roy like that 10, 12 years ago to create something to build on. I don't know that I knew I was doing it then, but I look back and it's like, yeah, I wanted him to communicate, so I shoved him a little bit. And I remember one year, and this is a little different situation where Dave Smart, who clearly is hands down, and my bias will always be recognized, hands down the greatest college basketball coach to ever live. Okay, like that's people have no idea what he accomplished in the Canadian League. And I'll say it. Duke never played them because they were afraid to lose. That's obvious what happened
Yeah.
over the year. It's obvious. Now I'm biased, but one he would be because he would run these guys into the ground, and it's very different situation in the rules of what's it called, the CIS. Very different than American.
Oh, but yes, it was CIS.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So those are two different things. Whatever. Well, basically, there's no rules on how much they can practice. They can practice all year, and they can play. They can be there for 5 years. And obviously, we're seeing more of that level of player. Even I don't think there's anybody in the NBA yet, but there's EuroLeague level guys. Aaron Dornekamp for several years has been a EuroLeague level player.
Yep.
So one summer he comes back, and Dave, he sits down next to me. He's like, "So I really had no idea." I'm like, "What are you talking about, man?" Because we would always bust balls. Because he knew that our values were a little bit different. But because he's a great coach, he still had to maintain his personality. Which, as long as you trust family, you're okay with those types of. That one uncle over there, but you know him and he's your family, so you know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
And after a while, you always know that you're gonna go to war for your family. And he's like, so I had no idea that you were kind of like this well known and respected. And I'm like, dude, nobody respects me. Shut up, Dave. Get out of here. What are you trying to do? So obviously one, I guess he was like he did somebody at Carleton. He started to like, oh my God, like Charlie, like blah blah blah. And while I hope that that was not necessary for him to become a strong root in the development of all of Canada basketball. But that had a big part in it, where everything changed with him
Yeah.
after that, and he was so proud to show me the weight room in Carleton. So we were there. There was also a time where that was probably as close that I was scared to be deported from Canada because some I don't know if he was drunk or maybe he was challenged. I don't know the safest word to say, but he was clearly harassing people in the hallway, and he followed Sam and I into the bathroom. Now,
Oh.
if you're watching this, most people know what I look like. Sam is 6'5". Doesn't. I think intimidating is fair to put on the first three words to describe Sam Gibbs.
Yeah.
And he was really, like I said, Sam, this is like I'm telling you, this dude's acting crazy. And he started to bother Sam. He was like getting real close to him. So Sam was facing me, and I literally got into stance, and I was gonna, black, and I kept saying, Sam, I'm gonna get him, and then Sam would have been able to grab him. And we didn't have to do it. And I'm thinking, like, if I do this, like, I'm gonna get thrown out of the country. Like, even if there was someone there, and so there's an old story. But as I get diverted, the weight room in Carleton that Dave would suggest he had a big part, because look, if he's the most important coach at the university, he probably had a lot to do with it. It's probably like at least 10 or 12,000 square feet, and it's well equipped for a Canadian college. It was really to look at when the windows changed for the senior team, and Jay wasn't around as much, and then Roy moved on. Obviously, the culture is still there. Remains to be seen if it because none of it matters without other people, and I think that's part of what I think how I feel about everybody. about you, but also like it's an important lesson. Like people look at what we have done, and Cohen just sent me the latest. So I think it goes from 2016 till now. It's immeasurable. And I was just communicating to an NFL GM, and I just used all that stuff that basically shows that the city of Toronto is the single most grand epicenter of developing young basketball players. Like there's no like it's not even close to it's not New York, it's not Los Angeles, it's not Baltimore. Even if you put Baltimore and Washington D.C. together, which a lot of people do, nothing's even it's not even close. So I said this is but so I was trying to explain a little bit about sports science. I said because it's about asking questions, and we wanted to ask the question, how do we judge what we're doing as a performance staff, but take out wins and losses? Because at the end of the day, as highly as anyone may think of themselves, I'm not capable of getting guys to give up their summer at the NBA level. Like we're not even in that conversation. I think a lot of players would say, yeah, like one of the big reasons I come is because I feel I can get my body in a great place to start the NBA season. But even those players should not be coming when they don't have a contract, even though other countries' players do certainly play without NBA contracts. It's just a different gimmick. So I said, how do we judge what we're doing without wins and losses, and without, we don't call the plays, like we don't make the substitutions, and it's not even our expertise. And to demonstrate how do you like have any kind of objective data to show that, hey, this works. It's from we're developing not NBA players, because if somebody were to say, well, so and so would be in the NBA regardless, that's not unfair. Like but you're not going to say that 92 kids out of the city of Toronto would be playing Division I basketball without not just performance, but what Meeks does, and what Grunman and Matt York, what they put together for all those logistics. It's whatever the line is, like a village is many, or I don't even know what the cliche is. So it's everybody working together, and that's where I don't know that that's often recognized when people look at their own program and be like, well, how do you get this to happen? Because we also, I think, accomplish some of these things despite, some of the cultural things. Like, it's not perfect. I mean, there's names that I'm not mentioning because they would be antagonists, not to the performance or like, oh, no, I don't want to do Omega Wave. Just because they're not positive individuals for people to be who they are. They're not they're just selfish. And we still were able to accomplish it, but maybe that's why wins and losses and getting players to play is still the gap analysis. And that's where the data is really staggering. And you would see these kids, usually, so you would see them right after they would be in the academy, and the academy wasn't always there during this period of time.
I start working with them in the academy. So they come in at around age 12, some of them maybe 11. And then if you look at it, the way that it's been able to kind of grow from junior academy, we've even had their siblings who were, 8, 7 when junior academy started, and they've also come through and had the benefit of having that sibling and understanding that process.
Now, when you're at junior academy, how often are there kids from other parts of the country of Canada, not Toronto?
So we have brought in a couple from Quebec over the years. And I think junior academy as a whole has grown and is in different provinces now. We've grown it out, but the majority of them are from Ottawa.
Yeah. I mean, the most resources are put into the junior academy events that are in Toronto, great, whatever we're going to call it, the Greater Toronto Area, the 6. Obviously, the travel from Quebec is not prohibitive. But I'm curious because as far as the country of Canada being the second, most prolific, I think that's just beyond. We just looked at cities, and we chose the city because there was this intended program that where these kids would start with you, and I know the fitness, it was not as robust as the medical service, so there were probably a lot of really good people, some of which I don't even know early on. They would start sometimes at the age of 8 and 9 years old into this culture of performance, and they're now, ridiculous, like just populating any country not called America. And there's what they're doing at 8 years old is not the exact same thing that they're doing at 18 and 28, but the concepts of long-term athletic development that we expect to deliver by the time, like this past summer, where the opportunities are at the most grand level, they're with you way before they're ever on the big stage, and that's and they're doing a lot of the same things. So
Yeah.
um,
Built out the program that way so that it would be mirrored and it wouldn't be a new concept for them when they were getting to their first age group, which is the cadets. And there was a big gap between when you're coming into a training camp and what is expected of you, and skill-wise, training-wise, how to look after your body. And so those concepts got taken and put into the junior academy to teach them so that they were prepared. And I think that we see that every year now with the way that the makeup of the teams are going. I think the U19 team I was just on had 7 from the Ontario Junior Academy, and the U16 team that I was just in Mexico with had at least 6, I think.
So you went to the U19 as well, or was that Chris John?
No, I was in Latvia this summer as well with the U19s, and then I was in Mexico as well this summer.
Yeah, the U19 has one of my favorites. I think is the kid from Purdue, the 7'2" kid.
Second.
Yeah, he's the real deal. Like, and people saw him a lot at Purdue. But the one that people haven't seen yet was the kid that you had in Mexico. Everybody, I hope he continues to develop, because he's gonna make a lot of money because he's got a really fun personality. He still looks like he's 12 years old. But when you hear him talk, it's like the Incredible Hulk.
It's so true.
What?
And he does.
So we're talking about Olivier Rioux, and what is he listed on paper? 7'5"?
Yeah, 7'5".
And then what's he barefoot? Don't say what he really is, because I want him to make as much money as possible.
No, he's 7'5".
7'5" barefoot. Because I remember Sim was 7'5" in shoes and like 7'3.5" barefoot, which is normal. Like, you're gonna be smaller. And I think people saw him as like a meme when he was 12 years old, and I think he was probably 6'11" or 7 feet at the age of 12. But he was playing on the little basket.
Yeah.
And he was just it was like a man against like total little kids. So how does he now? Is he a young 15, 16 years old, or is he more mature because he's so big?
He's more mature than everybody's always watching him, but he's developed a lot, because he's a kid that we brought in from Quebec to junior academy, so he's been there before, just to even help him learn how to move when you're that big and you're that young. Just to teach him body awareness it was fun to see him this summer running up and down a basketball court, because when he
runs around still like he's 7'5". Zach Edey does not move like 7'2". Like he moves much smaller than that, but he plays that big.
But he's a multi-sport athlete. He played hockey and he was a pitcher in baseball that was being recruited before he ever started playing basketball. So that's a cool one to see the translation of how move his body from playing other sports really competitively.
Yeah. Now, the first time we saw Olivier, we were in Montreal. What would be what's the big school at McMaster? Where would we have been practicing in downtown Montreal?
Miguel?
Okay, that's it. I don't know it was some Irish sounding name. Larry Hunter, who helps us a lot in out that way. I think he's the head strength coach there, so it's probably what it is. And so we knew he was coming because it's whatever local, wherever he's from in Quebec, and he hurt his ankle. Like I don't, and we're like, dude, everybody's excited. We want to see this 7'2" 11-year-old or whatever it is. So he walks in, and it's obviously like because he still has this very young looking person.
Yeah.
And we asked him like what happened. And the most exciting thing that he said was he hurt himself playing hockey. And I'm like, yes, he plays multiple sports. This is awesome. Now I don't think Olivier plays more than one sport anymore though.
No, I don't think so either. I'm pretty sure it's just basketball now.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a lot of unfortunate. And IMG doesn't seem to develop a lot of the people that I'm familiar with. It's more of a place of survival rather one of development. So when you're 7'5", I think he'll survive just fine.
Yeah.
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 So yeah, I think so like 2011 you started. And that was like the first like kind of time I was there. And then the next year would have been my first full year. And so because at that time we only had one intern, right? What was her name? Like she was always on your hip. Like she
Jenny.
was about that, yeah. And you guys didn't like your Nikes, and you went back to the Nike store and returned them and got money for them or something. That's you see the things I remember.
Yeah, I think all of us did that summer. We returned them because there was a Nike store in the Eaton Center, and all of the coaches and all of the staff just started periodically going through training camp and switching them for something else.
Well, what were those the ones that had like the weaving? Like I don't remember what they were called, but I think they were. Not Flyknit, but it would have some kind of like crisscross.
No, I think I can't remember anymore. Because I still have those ones. I wear them when I hike.
Because whatever we got that year, they were trash.
Yeah.
But I could not bring in myself to return, like take a free pair of shoes.
Somebody challenged me. They said they didn't think I could actually return them. They didn't think they'd be accepted. So they said if I could do it, I could keep the gift card for it. So I was like, all right, fine, I'll take the shoes back. And so I got the gift card.
It might have been me. I'm not sure you should be returning a gift or a perk of your workplace, and then all of a sudden the money comes out of Nike. Like I don't know if that was the greatest thing, but I don't remember anything about a gift card.
No, I think it was one of the coaching staff. I just don't remember.
Greg, maybe it was Greg because he would have been around at that point.
Yeah, he was always trying to get. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. So that's and then what? 2013 was Venezuela. Oh my God! And that's where you would hear shots at night, from the 12th best hotel in Caracas. I don't know. I don't want to see what number 13 was. So that was when the story of the power going out in all of Caracas. So yeah, I remember my first memory was you doing something with those Nikes, like returning the shoes. So Mary, what so you've in the Canada basketball staff, Obviously, Sam, even though he was with the Raptors, he had to. I believe the CAT from Canada translates to the ATC in America. Chris John was at Michigan State, so there was that reciprocity. So I don't think you've ever worked in America, but when you're Canadian trained in the CAT, and I have some opinions that I've talked about, but the is that, are you guys trained that it's very similar to the American ATC, or is it ignorant, meaning like just blinders on, not a bad way, but just unaware? It's just something completely different. What's in your mind the difference between the CAT and the ATC?
Um, I mean, I probably have a blinders on to the way they're trained in the US. I know that the program I went to was the same as Sam and Chris John, and our program in general, it's at Sheridan, it's a 4-year academic bachelor degree now. And it's, my dog is in the background visiting us. And it's
Put him on camera. Pick him up.
Kind of it was built by a lot of different osteopathic manual practitioners as well. And so it kind of looks at the body as a whole and not just injury and orthopedic. They kind of help you look at the bigger picture, which is why I think a lot of us end up going on to doing things like osteo, so we can keep learning and they kind of pique your interest that way. So I do think it's a little different in the way that we're trained. And there's a lot more manual skill development as you're going through that program as well.
Yeah. I'm sure if someone was an ardent ATC in America, they would say it's the same. I don't even want to get into that.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion was that because in Canada, basically everywhere across the country, an athletic therapist can work in an office. There's in America, it's like the opposite. Like there's only a California, an ATC can just open up a business and work. Most everywhere else, you can only work in a sport, professional sport, a school, a camp. It's very under recognized. Now, whether that's right or wrong, I think it's wrong. I think people should get to, basically. I remember when I was in PT school and I didn't keep my mouth shut. They were poisoning the class of physical therapists that ATCs were bad because they were taking their work share, which is, like if someone's coming for your work share, you should raise your game. But I said, like, so you're saying that if I work at University X as an ATC, I'm allowed to ultrasound somebody. But if I walk across the street into the Student Health Center at University X, all of a sudden I'm not capable of safely ultrasounding somebody. And of course, there's no answer to that because it's silly. But what I have seen is that the CAT from Canada, because they have opportunity from the time they graduate, they can get reps basically practicing some form of therapy. Whereas in America, they don't have that opportunity. It's not because their education is so different. I don't think it's the same. I mean, I went through it. But I remember learning some manual therapy, but not with the influence. So basically, somebody for 5 years as an ATC at the high school level in America, their primary role is making sure athletes are hydrated and first aid. Whereas a CAT in Canada for 5 years, they may have the opportunity to work 8 to 10 hours a day in, I don't want to say a physical therapy clinic because they're not practicing physical therapy, but it would be the best way to describe it, where they're treating sports and orthopedic and they get repetitions and you get better because you make mistakes, you learn, whereas the ATC in America doesn't really get that opportunity to do those things. But as you know, we don't really have in America. And because I was saying on social media, very proud when you finished your osteopathic training. which was a couple years ago. So most people that are going to watch this on my side may not even, they're going to think osteopath is like a DO, which
Yes.
I'm not even sure. Our DO doesn't even exist in Canada. It's not an option.
No.
So in America, a DO would have training that has some of the things that you would learn as an osteopath. But when they graduate, they are licensed and privileged to basically practice just like an allopath, like an MD. Now there are some DOs that will practice osteopathy, which is basically solving pathology of all 10 systems of the body, somehow relating to the bones and moving the bones, whether they're moved actively or passively. That might sound like some hijinks, but if you're not really trained in it, now I don't, because it's very close to chiropractic to the degree that traditional chiropractic would believe that the adjustment of particular spinal segments can solve all 10 systems of the body. That being said, if you crack T7 and your liver enzymes change, I just want the test. I just want give me the real test. You don't get to put your hand. You don't get to put your hands over somebody's liver and say that there's a problem and that you're going to crack their back. That's not how this works. Osteopathy to me is a little bit more sensible, but I think you're trained because in Canada you're allowed to now treat all 10 systems of the body with your training as an osteopath, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So number one, did I describe it fairly and at least objectively because I said what my opinion I said was my opinion. So talk a little bit about why you chose to go back to osteopathic school, which the way you did it took 7 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a big commitment.
Yeah, it is. It's 5 years of coursework, and you have 1 year to 3 years to complete your thesis. So I did mine, and I defended my thesis last November. And I think the way I went through all of my education, like I said, our program at Sheridan is very much put together by a group that went on and became osteopathic manual practitioners. And then just working around Sam, I blame him for all of my student loans because you work around him and you just start to question things and you want more answers. So I'm always going to go back to school. I'm somebody who loves to learn, as I think all of us are. I think that's one of the reasons why we do so well together. And so just being around him, I think my intern year with Sam, when we were traveling together, I knew I was going to go back to school and do osteo. I needed some time off after I finished my athletic therapy degree because I did a kin degree prior to that as well. And so coming back into it, that's why I just wanted to know more. I think athletic therapy brought up more questions than answers. And so for me, going back in and delving into the body more, and I feel like the schooling and the education you get through doing osteopathy definitely makes you look at things and the relationships on a much deeper level. And so I loved it. I mean, it was a lot of work, but I loved every second of it. So that's why I went back to it.
Yeah, it's I want to say what I have seen in Canada from osteopaths, which is again very different than what we have in America as a doctor of osteopathy. They don't appear to be the same things. But it would be like if you saw an osteopath that only treated musculoskeletal issues. That's a really, really good physical therapist or chiropractor in America. But the difference is that as a physical therapist, and I don't know or care if I'm highly trained in osteopathy or not. I'm not. I'm exposed to osteopathic methodologies for musculoskeletal because as a physical therapist, I can't legally even say that I'm going to treat anything not muscle, nerve, or bone.
Mhm.
That being said, DNS is basically osteopathic. I mean, I learned, and I don't know what they do now because DNS is nothing like today that it was, 10, 12, 15 years ago when I started to learn it. But I learned about fertility, obviously pediatrics, the gastrics, GI systems, um, but basically everything is, as an osteopath, like it's why it's maybe in America is why it's considered this medical level, because you're truly treating medical issues. And
Mhm.
it's very hard for American trained healthcare folks to wrap their head around, because even though Canada looks and sounds a lot like America in a lot of ways, the healthcare model of practitioners are completely different setup. So, is that an accurate portrayal, do you think, of what you do as an osteopath?
Yeah, and I think one of the things, because we're not medically trained here, obvious, like we have to be more careful about the way that we do treat. So when we do have somebody come in that has more of a medical condition than an orthopedic injury, we have to be very careful about how we say what our findings are, because we don't want to come across as saying that we're diagnosing anything, because we're not allowed to do that. That's specifically for allopathic doctors.
Yeah,
They're allowed.
yeah,
And so you want to have a good system and network around you, that if you think something's going on, that you have that good referral base for us to be able to send them to somebody who will understand what you do and actually be open to listening to some of those things, because I think that that's really important as well. And I think also with athletic therapists in Canada, which is the athletic trainer in the US, we're allowed to work in clinical settings like clinical rehab clinics. But I think that the challenge we have is that it is very much like physio based. And so everybody gets referrals for physio whenever it comes to any kind of rehab. And so insurance companies here don't cover. And that's a big, I think, also a difference between here and the US is you can get insurance coverage for your physio, massage, osteo, chiro, which will cover so much of it. And athletic therapy is usually left off of the
yeah.
that,
I'm
the
I'm not I'm not up to speed on where athletic trainers are. But I think in the handful of states where they are allowed to work in a clinic the way you're describing, there's probably states in the South where athletic training is far more championed than it is in other parts of the countries. California is, because California is just a little bit wild in how these types of, like, because massage, like, if anyone could be a massage therapist tomorrow, basically. Um, a physical therapist cannot dry needle in California, but an athletic trainer can. And it's basically because an athletic trainer doesn't exist. It's not like they're allowed to do these things. The law like looks at them as something that they don't even have any ground, like they don't have any laws, like, whereas a physical therapist
yeah.
has its own set of laws. Now, that being said, I do remember many years ago when I did keep up a little bit, because I mean, before, I'd say for the first 6 or 7 years of my career, I was primarily an athletic trainer. Like, that was my first job in the league. I was assistant athletic trainer, and then in the D League, like now it's the G League. Now, I was always a physical therapist, but I took these jobs, and luckily I didn't. I never got thrown the you're overqualified. They did in the D League. They asked, like, why you want to do this. You could be making almost double if you stayed in New Jersey as a physical therapist. I'm like, because I want to work in basketball. And the coaches picked us anyway. There was nothing they could do to. They basically have to tell their coach, no, you can't have your guy.
Yeah.
But there were ways that an athletic trainer could be they wouldn't be getting paid insurance dollars, But if they practiced under the guidance of a physical therapist, which then caused a whole nother uproar because the athletic trainer would be like, well, why do I have to listen to a physical therapist? I know how to, and it's not wrong. It's just, it's not right either. I don't
Yeah.
think anybody should. The ones that you should be listening to are people that are better than you, not just because you have a degree. I gave the line to somebody. It might have been Sam yesterday. We were talking about something, and one of the lines that I learned during my experience in the Marine Corps was just because somebody gives orders, and it's another person's job to follow those orders, doesn't make either one more important than the other. And that requires a lot of good people to actually live that. So if you take an athletic trainer who feels like the whole system is holding them down, and then you got a jerk who's a physical therapist that needs to remind the athletic trainer that they believe to be above them, because that's what it was when I went to physical therapy school. There was like, they would use these terms of like, you have like, if you're a PT and an ATC, you have to honor the law of the higher degree. And I'm like, who is deciding that physical therapy is higher than athletic training? I don't even know, like, well, they physical therapists would say that, because if athletic trainers were allowed to work in the way that athletic therapists are allowed to work in Canada, they would be competing for jobs or revenue or compensation. Yeah. So I just find that to be horrible when people don't admit that, like, what the truth, like, because it goes in a lot of different levels. Orthopedic surgeons would hold that down, hold physical therapists back, where now every state in America, but you can walk into a physical therapy office and get on a schedule. It's called direct access.
Yeah.
But you couldn't do that. Like, it was a point. Okay, now it's 20 states, and now it's 30 states, and then there's caveats. Well, like, yeah, you could do that, but you could only do that for 30 days, and then you need a prescription. So it's it's a wacky thing. Does that do other? Yeah, because even in my mind, physical therapy is not the same in Canada as it is. It's just, I think that systemically it's the same, but what physical therapists actually do is very strange to me in Canada. It's like weird. That's not really physical therapy to me. Do they have this animosity?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that happens too is that in Canada we have regulated health professions, and so physio is a regulated health profession. Massage, and it depends on what province you're in too. So in Ontario, physio is a regulated health profession. Massage therapy is a regulated health profession. Chiro is. Some Chinese medical acupuncture is. But there's different regulated professions, and so they're seen as higher or better than athletic therapists, because therapy and osteo are not regulated health professions. And it became a thing during COVID when we were shut down. They shut.
Oh, you wouldn't be allowed to work.
I wasn't allowed to work as an osteo or an athletic therapist, but I could work as a massage therapist. I couldn't work as the other two because they weren't regulated health professions.
That was the same. That's the same in America, and it's the same in terms of like regulations, like licensed, certified, registered. It's the same. Where there's like personal trainers, they every so often you hear them like, personal trainers should be licensed, and I'm like, dude, I don't think you can predict getting locked out of work like COVID, but you don't want rules, because at least you don't have rules that you can break. I don't think people realize that, at some point, their licensure, provides credibility, and in Canada a little different because it allows, for the healthcare piece. The same in America, but ultimately you don't want to be licensed, because then you can do whatever you want, like in California. So like if I ever moved to California, I don't know that I would get licensed as a physical therapist. Now I would still lose like that this if I got in trouble, I'd say no, I'm not a physical therapist, and then they would say like clearly people are coming to you because they know of your physical therapy training. I don't know how the law would flesh out that way, but yeah, it's definitely different. And look, the other thing too is I don't have much of a peripheral view. I only know Toronto, a little bit of Montreal. I don't certainly a little bit of the big cities just from people that I know. But I don't know what it's like as a whole. I just know. And the other thing that complicates it even more, you said that you have your bachelor's degree in kin, which means kinesiology. That's very, 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 very common. Very common.
Which is health profession here in Ontario.
And I had no idea of this because there is no if somebody says, Charlie, I want to go see Mary. She's a kinesiologist, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like that's not a real thing. Like there's no like in America, if you can call yourself a kinesiologist, and it's just like calling yourself a biomechanist. Whether you have a PhD or not, anyone can call themselves a biomechanist. You can call yourself a rehab professional. You can call yourself a personal trainer, a strength coach. None of these are regulated. And I did 3 days in Toronto at one point, and it was because I think and others like for all the when I would do seminars, unless the 100% of the room was healthcare, then I wouldn't show any healthcare techniques. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like it's against my values to do this. They can learn it somewhere else. And aside for other reasons, I'll never work with that fellow ever again. He's like, no, the kinesiologists are licensed. They're healthcare providers. And I'm like, what? Like that's all right, fine. And apparently, a kinesiologist can dry needle. Is that true?
Yeah, they're regulated health professionals, so they can. Yeah.
Man, but they're not like can they charge insurance in the in the
have personal care insurance that bills kinesiology, they will bill. They can bill as a kinesiologist. Yes.
So that's just another type of healthcare provider in the country of Canada.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a trainer. So if somebody was in America called themselves a kinesiologist, they would be some kind of fancy, likely duplicitous in presenting themselves as more than a competent fitness trainer.
Yes.
I don't. Yeah, I don't. Because I don't understand it. It's a my bachelor's degree could be kinesiology. It's not. It's exercise and sports science. And if I went to a different school, the same coursework could be called bachelor's in kinesiology. But that's just like your major. Like it's not a profession in America. But in Canada, I know this, and I remember like, oh no, don't worry, they're kinesiologists. I'm like, wait a minute. Like in my mind, that means nothing. That means they're, and it's usually negative because somebody's trying to use a fancy name. Or like years ago, I did a podcast with a movement specialist, and I said, like, what do you think of that? I said, a movement specialist is probably someone who is not dedicated to going back to school to be a healthcare provider because that's really what they want to do, and they probably are miserably out of shape because they have no idea what real fitness is. That podcast didn't go well for the rest of the time. So like people that call themselves something more scientific is usually duplicitous. It's they're trying to present themselves, but in Canada, kinesiologist is what it is.
Yeah, and there's a big push to have the athletic therapist join the College of Kinesiologists. So I think for 3 years I was registered as a kinesiologist, and it's a gong show up here between those two. So I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that, but I'm going to. And I dropped mine. said, I'm not going to keep paying dues to this. It's not, it doesn't affect me.
Oh
I've got
yeah,
other things.
I have.
And you can't call yourself a kinesiologist if you drop this. And I was like, that's cool. I didn't want to in the first place. Like, that's why I
Yeah,
kept going.
we have the legal, warranty to call yourself something is different than being part of the professional organization. So
Yeah.
I don't pay. I'm not a part of the American Physical Therapy Association. I'm not a part of the National Athletic Trainers Association. But the licensing, that's like a separate thing. So because
Yeah.
if I don't have to be a part of it, and like that, I don't support what they do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Yeah, I am allowed to say that, and I think you're allowed to say it too. Like, because I still have to keep up with credits from the state,
Yeah.
or so for athletic training, it's like a national thing, but that's separate. But I look at the quality of the work and the antagonism that these professions show. I'm not giving you my money for you to continue this battle.
Right.
Well, we need money to do the things that you do want. Yeah, you're not wrong on that. So if there's a state that I work in, and now there's no longer one, but where dry needling is, they need money to campaign to get the law to change. I'm like, yeah, but you're also going to use that money to hold down other people the same way Asian medicine providers are holding down physical therapy. So it's like, it's okay to fight back against orthopedists that hold direct access against you, or Asian medicine providers that hold dry needling, when in dry needling is nothing to do with acupuncture. They're two completely different animals. You get mad about that, but it's okay for you to limit the opportunities for athletic trainers and massage therapists or even personal trainers. How's that work?
Yeah.
So I don't, and if I don't feel like, look, the truth too is, my business, role in the world, is above their game plan anyway. Like if you're like a rank and file and you own a whole bunch of clinics, you might have more interest in supporting those efforts. I'm like, how about you just be really good at what you do, and be nice to, be nice to be around, and you make money. Like, why do you think, like, you don't want somebody to hold you down, but it's okay for you to hold somebody else down. So it's that's how, it appears that there's this hierarchy, and that's how you can see it. Like, the hierarchy shows itself when one profession looks at another as trying to take away their market share.
Mm-hmm.
But I try very hard to. I'm not embarrassed to talk about it ever, but I don't ever participate in these situations where, and dry needling is a big one. There's some states where physical therapists are not allowed to do anything that like is fast. So like you see,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even saying what it is, because in other states, such as New Jersey, where I would be very familiar, a physical therapist is not allowed to manipulate the cervical spine.
Mm-hmm.
However, you are more than welcome to do a high velocity, low amplitude thrust, or I would be allowed to commit a grade 5 mobilization, but I cannot practice a manipulation. I could even be disrespectful and say that I'm allowed to crack someone's neck, but so because chiropractors own the word manipulate,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how foolish these things are. Like, it's like but I can do a grade 5 mold, but I can't do a manip. Like this is and there's some states where it's totally off the grid. You can't do anything that. And I'm like, okay, so how do you decide fast? Like, so if I do ART really fast, is that, where does, I don't even get into it. So And I'm guessing these things also happen between provinces, even though there's only, I don't even know. But how many provinces are there? Seven, eight?
Oh my gosh, you're questioning me now. I don't even know anymore.
Oh
There's
my God, that'd be like somebody in America that didn't know that there was 50 states.
failed geography right there.
No. So I always get I get quizzed because out east is all these little ones that I don't know anything about.
Charlie, come on.
Okay, so wait, so after Montreal, I'm sorry, after Quebec, then what? Then it's
Got
Newfoundland.
New Brunswick?
Oh wait, so Newfoundland is right?
No, no, no. After Quebec, you've got New
No,
Brunswick.
it's that's where Cohen lives in New Brunswick.
No, he doesn't, and he'd get very upset with you. Cohen and I and Jenny are all from Nova Scotia.
And Jay.
And Jay's from Newfoundland.
Oh man. Okay. So it goes New Brunswick, then
Yeah.
Newfoundland,
No, then
then
Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia, then Newfoundland?
Yeah, Newfoundland is kind of above Nova Scotia.
And then is
It's
that what's the last one? What's the Earth?
it's New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and then Newfoundland.
Uh, where's Carl from?
Newfoundland.
So that's the end of the Earth, right? Like when you stand on that one
Yeah,
little part,
that's
you
where
could like swim. You could swim to Ireland.
that's it. From there.
Now what about
I don't know
PEI?
if
That's
you
over
can
there.
swim. PEI, yeah. So
Well,
it's Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and then just above that is PEI, and then it's the Rock. It's Newfoundland.
the Rock. That's they were. I think we played two games there, and that was like the last that we ever saw of Carl when it came to Canada basketball. Yeah.
He's starting up stuff. He's got camps and everything going on there.
I saw his. I saw he had a building that had his name on it. My room upstairs is too far because I have one of his jerseys that. But I don't. It would take me way too long to run up and. It's not that my house is that big. It's just it's too long to go get it. I think would who would you? I think the answer for me is easy. Like one of the most pronounced players in the history of Canada basketball that nobody really knows about would be Carl.
Oh yeah,
Um,
there's a
and
sure is up there.
he could probably be in politics there if he wanted to.
Is he not yet? Like I just assume that he's the.
But so where Carl played at University of Hawaii, and I worked in Hawaii, and they all knew that I knew him, and if you look at he does a pretty good job on social media of showing old pictures where he has all like bleached blonde hair. So he's in like at least in America we would consider Newfoundland to be very hillbilly, and basically, so what? How long? So it would probably be like 7 or 8 hours to get to California, and then another five. I mean, he probably is about as far as you can go without being in Europe and Asia, from tip to tip. Um, and he played. He definitely had a uniform for a couple games with the Pacers. I think he only played in preseason though. I don't think did he ever play in a game?
I don't think so, but
But then,
we can't.
but yeah, I think people are. It doesn't matter if he did or not, but because I have way better stories to tell about him. And but I think people are seeing now that if you're a EuroLeague player or a very high level player in Europe, the game is different enough where maybe it doesn't appear that you excel in the NBA, but you're still one of the top basketball players on earth. And I think during his prime, Carl probably would have been in that. Carl English would have been in that category. So
Mhm.
I think I'm trying to think who I mean, right now probably people would know about him from college, but Kevin Pangos would be in that. And Kevin's name was bandied about quite a bit in terms of signing with an NBA team. I don't think he did, but he would be one of the top point guards in Europe. And but he also went right to Europe. He didn't. He never tried to play in the minor leagues or anything like that. Like Carl played on what my D League team. Like after I left and went back to the NBA, he was on whatever, because my team in Columbus, Georgia, went to Florida, moved to Florida, and I think he was on that team. But I wasn't. I wasn't there anymore. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know who else would have had a. I'm sure Sam would know, because Sam knows like every player in the history of ever.
I think Denham Brown is another one. Did Denham come
Yeah, he's a little different story, because I don't think he had this excelled career in Europe.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, as far as a talent level, I think he was drafted like 15 or so he was drafted very, very high in the first round. So I think.
Yeah.
But and I met him a couple years ago. He came back to coach. He came back to coach a little bit.
Yeah, I think he did the 116 points in Toronto.
Yeah, I understand why you bring him up, but I don't think he had this super mega career like Carl did. I mean, Carl made a lot of money and played at a very, very high level.
Yeah, I think talent-wise, he's probably somebody that would be in the conversation as well.
Who's that?
I said talent-wise.
Oh yeah, Denham Brown. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, you back to work now, or do you still have any time to take after all this summer stuff?
No, straight back to work.
And you have your own office, right?
Yeah. I treat. I treat out of my home in Ontario, and then I have a couple days a week where I can travel to people or see them out of a gym in Toronto. Yeah, so I can go down.
I think your dad just told us that Pango signed today
with Cleveland. There you go, 3-year contract.
Wow.
Dad?
Wow. So now, and are you still working with Matty Nickel at all?
Yeah, so oh my gosh, I loved working with Matty. I have been doing less with him since all of the COVID and everything went down, but if he ever needs me to see anybody, then I will go down and see them for sure. Yeah.
Cool. All right, well, that's, I think, I'll probably make it my business over the next little while to have everybody on. And you know the reasons why. So I said before that when the secret to the sauce that isn't very secret is just having the right people together, and that doesn't even mean all good people, because people can be good and just not be the right fit. But when you can bring together all the right people, there's some really very amazing things that can be accomplished. And I'm glad to have that you were a part of it and continue to be a part of it. And the thing that it is not meant for a response. For our program to be lucky enough to have a strong female and be able to have them with the younger kids who are traveling in foreign countries, sometimes traveling for the very, very first time. And maybe when they come to Canada basketball, it's almost something more stable than what they have in home. And to be able to have a matriarchal figure like you to be whatever it is they need to be as a female leader to them is a major part of what I talk about in our program. And maybe it's incidental to start with, but it's not incidental after 10, 12 years. And that's very important. And the positive role that you play for a lot of these young men when they're traveling and being away from home for the first time. And I think that's very, very important to recognize. And that's when you have great people together. The secret sauce is that's all it is. It's just people. So I think that's very, very important to recognize, Mary. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I was thinking about this a little bit today too, and I just think like to be able to come out of school the way that I did, to get the internships with Sam, and then be able to have that role grow and the opportunity to learn from you guys over the last 10 years. And even outside of that, to have Matt be somebody that has played such a huge role in my own career. I mean, I think that I don't know when else that would happen. And so I feel like just genuinely lucky and grateful to be able to have learned and to continue learning from you guys, because I think that's invaluable.
You or anyone is lucky the first time, but you're not lucky when it's 10 to 12 years of consistent success. So I know I have some mentors that get frustrated when I say I'm lucky. I was like, all right, fine. Maybe I hit a double off the wall, but somebody still had to let me pinch hit. So you get the
Yeah.
opportunity. You know, the first one, yeah, of course, it's a lot of who you know and luck but not it's not luck when Cohen crunches those numbers and knows that the development of these athletes is not because of any one person, and it's not because of the Canadian flag. It's certainly not from the leadership that is often non-existent in our organization. It's because of the people that do what they do and work together. And the uniqueness that I mentioned from you is highly visible and highly recognized. So that's the secret for people. You want to, if anybody thinks that Canada basketball has done some pretty cool things, hey, just bring in together the right people with the right system. And if it was that easy, everybody would be doing it. That's a big part that I wanted to share here, and also demonstrate that a significant part of our conversation has nothing to do with basketball, Canada basketball, etc. And that's when you have the right people, when there's layers to what people can communicate about. Because if all we could ever talk about was basketball, and you take that away, there's nothing there. And that's another layer to this secret sauce it's exciting to share. So, all right. All right. Well,
All right.
I hope your dad was okay with everything, and I'm glad that he told us that Kevin Pangos signed, because that's everybody. You know, Kevin is one of the really good guys. So hopefully Dad enjoyed this, and lot to be proud of there, Dad. All right.
Thank you.
All
Yeah.
right. We'll see you soon. Be well, Mary.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye
You
bye.
as well.